Aaron Rodgers returns to Soldier Field for what could be one last stand in the place against the team that he claims to own, but the Chicago Bears are hoping to take that ownership back if Rodgers even plays with his broken wrist. A lot to break down on today's Crossover Thursday Locked On Steelers, Locked On Bears podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into this Crossover Thursday Locked On Steelers, Locked On Bears podcast. I'm Lauren Cox, host of Locked On Bears, alongside Christopher Carter, host of Locked On Steelers. Thank you for making Locked On Bears or Locked On Steelers your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network. And our Crossover Thursday podcasts are brought to you by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineups. Chris, I imagine Steelers fans get a little tired of Aaron Rodgers narratives and teams that he's facing, but this week, something a little bit fresh with the wrist injury, and we're not exactly sure if he's going to play or if he's not. I know Bears fans have had this game circled for a long time. What do we know right now, or is that very little?
It's still very little. The thing is, Aaron Rodgers absolutely does want to play. And in fact, he wanted to go back in the game that he was knocked out of just this past weekend in the Bengals game. But the Steelers erred on the side of caution, and at the end of our press conference, he was asked, do you anticipate this being something that goes all the way to game time or something that you decide that you figure out Thursday or Friday? And he says, I leave that up to Mr. Coach Tomlin. So it was funny the way he said it too. But, he said his wrist feels better. It kind of described what happened, that he's just been doing a lot of rehab ever since. He kind of just fell down on his wrist when he was trying to brace himself as he was taking, he's hitting the ground after a hit. He said it's not a pain issue. It's more of a safety issue because it's the functionality. And Mike Tomlin kind of hinted towards that when we talked to him on Tuesday, talking about it's the functionality of Aaron Rodgers that he wants to make sure of, that the non-throwing wrist doesn't, prohibit him from taking snaps, or protecting himself when he's on the field. So I think this is just a sense of right now he's going to keep rehabbing. He did not practice on Wednesday. We will see if he practices Thursday. I think the big day to watch is just Friday. Does he go through the walkthroughs on Fridays? If he does, then it's at least up in the air. If he doesn't, I imagine the Steelers will shut it down, declare him out, and it'll just be on Mason Rudolph Sunday.
Yeah, that would definitely be two very different matchups for the Chicago Bears. And I'm really interested about how this rivalry of sorts plays out on the field on Sunday in terms of energy for the game, because Bears fans have a lot of energy for Aaron Rodgers, and we'll hear from Rodgers in a second here about his return energy for Bears fans here. But when you look at this Bears roster, the last time Rodgers played the Chicago Bears was back in 2022, and the Bears have turned over the vast majority of the team since then. You can count on, I think, one hand the number of players on this Bears roster that played Aaron Rodgers as a member of the Green Bay Packers. It's tight end Cole Kmet, I think Jalen Johnson, if he comes off injured reserve and plays. I think Jaquan Brisker and Kyler Gordon were rookies that season, the kicker Cairo Santos. But it's not as though you have 53 Bears players who remember what it was like when Rodgers was beating up on them every single week. It's kind of more like a handful of guys, but you'll have 60,000 fans at Soldier Field who remember Aaron Rodgers beating them up every week. And I'm curious, how that translates. If even players who weren't here can feel that and kind of take that on, or for a lot of them, it'll just be well, Steelers are a non-conference opponent, a good team, and you want to win every game. But maybe this will end up feeling a little bit more like any other game, regardless of if Rodgers plays or not.
No, I think that's the thing here, is that Aaron Rodgers even acknowledges it's less about the team. It's more about the history of the rivalry, which he'll talk about in a second here. But he acknowledged it's one of the greatest rivalries of all time in sports. Just Packers, Bears, and their history of going at it. And he recognizes that a big part of it is the fans and the lore that they brought to it. And so But it's funny when we talked about the Steelers-Packers game, he was like, I don't know anybody over there anymore. Like even the guys that he played with are mostly gone outside of like Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur. And so he was kind of like, I don't have many gripes. The one team that he really was like happy to give his digs out to was the Jets, because he was literally just there last year, and there was obviously some stuff about how he was let go. But yeah, I don't think it's as much there's an animus for him. I do think we all know Aaron Rodgers got a bit of petty in him. He would love to have that be a cap on his career where he continues to just own the Bears. And so anytime he walks around Chicago, he can be like the boogeyman or whatever. But I think it's also cool that he pays a lot of homage to Chicago and the history of Chicago sports when we talked to him in the locker room in the Steelers locker room earlier on Wednesday.
Yeah, let's go to that clip now. This is courtesy of you. You stand, you can hear your voice. You stood there and recorded this clip and provided it for. So thanks from all the Bears fans. You get to hear Aaron Rodgers talk about this matchup, and I know your Steelers listeners are used to this. So here's Aaron Rodgers talking to the media about this rivalry and this matchup and what to expect on Sunday.
Is there added incentive for you for the opponent this week?
There's incentive for every opponent, but I have enjoyed many a Sunday and Monday and many Thursdays in that city. It's a great sports town, phenomenal sports fans, and great place to play.
Do you sort of thrive off being the villain there a little bit? Sort of enjoy that?
I'd rather not be. I mean, I'm not in Green Bay anymore. I feel like we can let bygones be bygones. Maybe I can, I guess. It's a great rivalry. I mean, in the history of all sports, you talk about the Lakers and the Celtics, and the Red Sox and the Yankees. You got to talk about the Packers and the Bears. And there's been some great memories there. When I first got to Green Bay, the Bears had the all-time series lead. When I left, Packers did. Since Jay Love has taken over, it's even gotten better. But I hope those fans can put that behind them. I'm sure they can. Don't expect them to, but I really enjoy the city. They got great sports fans. I grew up watching WGN on my five-channel TV back in the day, so I was a Cubs fan and a Bulls fan. How can you not be a Bulls fan unless you don't like Michael Jordan? I did. I love them. So it was a lot of fun memories over the years playing there.
Their defense creates a lot of turnovers. What do they do especially that you have to watch out for?
Well, they're great around the football. They're knocking the ball out. They have a lot of vision in their defenses. They mix things up. They attack your protection schemes. Coach Allen's got them playing really well. And 22 turnovers is a big reason they're 7-3.
But even when Aaron Rodgers talks complimentary about the Chicago Bears, it still is like, screw you, man. Like, I don't want to hear it. Like nobody in Chicago wants to hear all that stuff. I don't care if you're a Bulls fan or a Cubs fan or whatever, man. Like, get out of here. Yeah. Like even at the end there, right? He's very complimentary of Dennis Allen's defense and says the Bears defense is playing well. Like, they're not playing that well. Like, that's one of the big storylines. Is like they played a little better against JJ McCarthy and the Vikings last week because McCarthy put 17 passes in the dirt and his receivers dropped 6 more. But like, there's a big fear for Bears fans entering this game that like now you're playing playoff teams. Like first place Steelers, they got the Eagles after that, Packers after that. Like you're going from playing maybe a little bit of an easier schedule, and the wins still count even against bad teams. But now you're really going to get tested. And I know Rodgers hasn't been as sharp the last like game or so, but there's still a fear that like he's going to get this offense kind of jump started again with the Steelers in an easier matchup against potentially a still banged up Bears defense.
I mean, like you said, the Bears, they're dealing with injuries right now. And right now, like, the Steelers defense has some not great metrics, but so do the Bears. Like the Steelers defense right now is giving up the most passing yards per game. They're 28th in total yards per game. They're 13th in rushing yards. So they're holding up there. But the Bears, they're 26th in points, 27th in yards allowed, 30th in rushing yards allowed and yards per carry. But I look at that and I think that the Steelers, Aaron Rodgers, he's smart enough. He still has the football IQ to adjust and to see what's going on. I think the thing that holds him up the most sometimes is he does not have the rapport with the Steelers playmakers on offense just yet. I think sometimes he has one with Jaylen Warren, sometimes he has one with DK Metcalf. But like guys like Roman Wilson, where like, in the past, like Randall Cobb would be that guy. You're like, why? How does he just make plays like that? He doesn't have that kind of connection with a Roman Wilson. Like I even asked him later in that scrum because the play right before he came off, with an injury, he fired a pass to Roman Wilson in the red zone, and Wilson like ran his route a little too quick and not into the end zone in a red zone possession when it was third down and they needed to kick a field goal if they missed this. And he was just furious. He was just like, what are you doing? But like at the same time, he's been very complimentary of Roman Wilson, but he's trying to get that out of him. But he's been getting really close, man. Like there's times where he sees things, and when things click, you're like, man, you're seeing the connections start to build. And that's what the Bears should be wary of, is that if this offense starts to find rhythm, he is very good at pulling that out of guys like Darnell Washington. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the clips of him just running people over, but that's something that he said from the jump. He was like, I'm going to love throwing the ball to this guy. And now Darnell Washington is like leading the Steelers in tight end snaps over Pat Freiermuth, who's making like $11 million this year. So I think Aaron Rodgers, he's figuring some things out, and the Bears defense, it would help to get some guys healthy back. But I do think that's going to be something that Chicago fans could, if he plays, could end up being like, how is this guy still doing this?
And how is Darnell Washington at 311 pounds running like that? But we talk about some of these Steelers playmakers and some of these Bears injuries. Those are going to be critical to some of the matchups that will decide this game. So we'll kind of check in on both the health of both these two teams and also the one-on-one matchups that we think are going to be most pivotal as we continue our Crossover Thursday Locked On Steelers, Locked On Bears podcast. Our Crossover Thursday podcast is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both. There's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, PrizePicks is the simplest way to play. You just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere PrizePicks operates. You can even cross sports. You could take Aaron Rodgers' passing yards and maybe someone from his Chicago Bulls, their points, how they're going to score in the game. Or you could take a Bears player, and I guess it'd be a 76er, would be the closest Pittsburgh team, but you get the idea. You can cross and pick your players, and if you're right, you can win big. Download the PrizePicks app today and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. As we continue our Crossover Thursday, Locked On Steelers, Locked On Bears podcast, I want to thank you for making this Locked On podcast your first listen today and hopefully every single day. Really glad to have you a part of the conversation with us as we turn our attention to these matchups. Chris and I were talking before we started recording, like it's a tricky matchup game to play because, for Chicago, they've got injuries to all 3 of their starting linebackers and their top 3 cornerbacks. And so your matchup of, if it's DK Metcalf versus, say, Jalen Johnson coming off of injured reserve, that's one dynamic. And if it's DK Metcalf versus Nashawn Wright or Nick McLeod, one of the Bears' backup cornerbacks, well, all of a sudden, that's a very different matchup for this Bears defense. And so, I think that's kind of where I start is I feel pretty good about these Bears cornerbacks being able to hold up if they get some of their starters back. But if it's the backups that have been out there the last handful of weeks, I think there's going to be some opportunities for Rodgers to maybe get going a little bit more vertical than we've seen him opt for as much this season.
Yeah, he really hasn't tried it too much, and when he hasn't found too much success. The biggest plays he's gotten are sort of the catch and runs. The Steelers are living off the yak, and that's where I think if the linebackers aren't healthy, that's where it could really hurt you because the Steelers love to run 13 personnel. I think they're like 4th or 3rd most usage of bringing 3 tight ends on the field. That's because they got Darnell Washington, who we talked about earlier, Pat Freiermuth, and they have Jonnu Smith, who they're very confident about rolling out there to be a playmaker in this offense. And then you have those 3 guys with a DK Metcalf. That's 4 really big bodies that you have to account for, that if they get the ball in space and you have to come up and tackle them, it forces you to be a good tackling team. And the Steelers have capitalized on that. And oh, by the way, they love to dump the ball down to Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell, two speedy backs out the backfield. That's where I think the Bears have to be the most aware. If you're Chicago, you need to be coming out, and you cannot give the Steelers space to win with yak. If you give Jaylen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell, those guys space to catch the ball and then turn up field, you're playing right into the Steelers' hands. You got to press these guys. You got to say, hey, you know what, Aaron Rodgers, beat us over the top. Hit us with the deep ball. I dare you to connect there. And I know Lauren's probably saying, like, no, we've been here before. but this year, I really think, like last year when the Steelers were playing the Ravens the second time around, their defensive coordinator was on Hard Knocks saying Russell Wilson is layups and three-pointers. And if we force him to avoid those and fight in the intermediary, we can win. And that's what they did. And then that was a blueprint to stop Russell Wilson the rest of the season that not everyone had figured out. And so I think right now, if I'm an NFL defense and I'm playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, my number one priority, stop the run, because they want to run the ball on you, force Aaron Rodgers or Mason Rudolph to hit you, and force it to be the deep ball. I'm pressing, I'm jamming, I'm doing everything I can, and I'm saying, go ahead, hit me on that deep ball. If you hit me, you hit me. But I'd force Aaron Rodgers to prove he can do that. But I see, Lauren, you're kind of sitting here like with a PTSD face.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly that, right? It's like I've seen so many Aaron Rodgers, like, and it's not even like
he's
one.
Not the same.
It's Jordy Nelson. It's DeAndre. It's Devontae Adams. Randall Cobb. It's Jeff Janis. It's the nobodies too. So it definitely does scare me. But I think that does play. I mean, it's tricky because Chicago generally, I think, has done well tackling in space and let you throw it short and come up and wrap up pretty well. Now, I think some of the backups have been a lot worse at that than the starters. I'm worried about linebacker Noah Sewell leads the team in missed tackles. I'm worried about him and working on those tight ends over the middle. And then a couple of the backup cornerbacks, especially Nick McLeod, has not been very physical in that regard. But a lot of the other guys, when healthy, have been able to wrap up. And the problem has been the deep ball, right? It's been one-on-one with Nashawn Wright and Nick McLeod deep downfield that they just can't hold up, and they get burned down at the catch point and can't quite make that stop. And so if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I'm looking at this Bears matchup and saying they can't really get after the quarterback well with a four-man rush. So I know the Steelers' offensive line has not been as consistent as they want it to be in pass protection, but like he should have time in this game. Dennis Allen will blitz him some, but that's pretty much the main source of the Bears' pass rush right now. Like the four-man rush is just not consistent enough. It's not useless. It's just not nearly good enough for what the Bears need it to. And they've let opposing quarterbacks sit in the pocket, have time, and slice and dice them. And that's been such a painful formula against Aaron Rodgers. Like I'm more worried about that right now than the backup linebackers and cornerbacks being able to tackle in space. It's giving Rodgers all this time to sit there and pick you apart. But if you blitz him a bunch, then you're leaving your cornerbacks one-on-one, and those quick passes, then you risk one missed tackle and the guy is gone. So Dennis Allen's been really kept in this, like, pick your poison. Do you let the quarterback sit there all day to help your secondary, or do you get after the quarterback and leave your secondary more vulnerable? And they've gotten by against, the Raiders and the Vikings and the Giants, but that's a lot harder to get by against Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers.
No, I feel you there. And listen, the Steelers, they don't have big names outside of DK Metcalf in the receiver room, but they have speed. And that's the thing, that if they can get loose, I still think that the Steelers, one unused part of this offense all season long has been the speed of Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson. And they've used it sometimes, but and it doesn't even need to be vertical, but more shallow crosses and slants, where if Rodgers can hit these guys coming across the field, they are tough to bring down, because both those guys clocked 4.3 speeds in the 40-yard dash when they came into the league. And Calvin Austin's in his fourth year. Roman Wilson's in his second. We know DK Metcalf has 4.3 speed, but they have those guys to put on those afterburners. And then they haven't even brought up Marquez Valdes-Scantling yet, and he's not a faster guy, but he's a go up and get the football type of guy. So between those guys, like, that's the thing, is Aaron Rodgers has different weapons to hurt you with. And I think what's, like, you brought it up, it's really been the last game and a half. He hasn't seen the field well. I've talked about it on Locked On Steelers. I've broken it down for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette in film studies. But looking at what's been going on, like, if you go back to how he played, in the Colts game, the Packers game, especially the Bengals game earlier, or like some of the plays he made against the Vikings, he has plays where he sees through what the defense is doing, gets the ball to a guy, and lets them do the work. And that's what this offense is designed to be. It's not designed to be an offense that lights you up for 40 points, each week. But it's designed to be an offense, kind of like how Mason Rudolph ran it in the second half against the Bengals last week, where, they put up just 10 points on the Steelers offense because they had 2 defensive touchdowns, but they did so in 2 drives that took up almost a quarter of play. The Steelers ideally want to play like that. They want to say, hey, we may not put up 35 points a game or nothing like that, but we were going to put up 20 plus, and we want to take time off the clock. Now, the thing is it hasn't really worked much this year. The Steelers ranked 30th in time of possession in the NFL, and that's something the Bears have to make something that holds. If they allow the Steelers to possess the football, it's going to allow that defense to stay rested, stay hungry, stay hunting. And we could talk about more of this in the next segment, but that defense is very much a different defense than it was just 3 weeks ago. And they're playing a lot faster and hungrier. And I think that it has some confidence growing right now in this locker room.
Yeah, I think Chicago ideally would like to play a similar game of like slow it down, control the clock, and not worry about putting up a bunch of points. Their defense hasn't necessarily allowed them to in a lot of these games where they just have to score some more points. But I think this is going to be one of the big keys to victory for both sides here, is like how well they can sustain some of these drives and keep, maybe not necessarily keep their defense off the field, but keep the opposing offense off the field a little bit more. So we'll take a look at that dynamic and some of the other things that will shape the winner of Sunday's matchup as we continue our Crossover Thursday Locked On Steelers, Locked On Bears podcast. This Crossover Thursday is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. We're loving the NFL season so far for both of these teams in first place, but the NBA season is back now too, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Because even if you miss opening tip-off or you just want to ride the hot hand once the game gets going, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at an even bigger payout. It just keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is the one that's really making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. As we wrap up our Crossover Thursday, Locked On Steelers, Locked On Bears podcast, we're going to get into some keys to victory for both teams and maybe some quick predictions on how we think this one is going to go. The Bears are favored by 2.5 points from our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook as we record this right now on Wednesday evening. But Chris, we started talking about a little bit at the end there. I think from a Bears offensive perspective, I think there's the feeling like they can generally like not just do whatever they want, but like do things well enough. Like they've been able to find answers to pretty much anything defenses are throwing at them. And that doesn't mean 35 points. It just means like when they get slowed down over the course of a game, Ben Johnson has been smart enough to find ways to adjust. And even if the Williams is struggling at first, get him into rhythm later, or if the running game is struggling, eventually kind of find a way to grind that out over time. So I think Bears fans have a good confidence that even though there's going to be ups and downs, they're not just going to score at will on the Steelers defense by any means, that they can find some ways to get things done and get their, 21 points at a minimum. It's just then, can your defense hold the other side down far enough? And I think that's why we spent the last segment talking so much about this Bears defense versus the Steelers offense, because that's just been the bigger struggle right now.
Yeah, I look at what the Steelers are up against here, and this is an offense that, we talked about the Bears' defensive metrics that didn't work. This offense has a lot of metrics that works for them. They're top 10 in scoring. They're top 5 in yards. They run the ball well. They're one of the best explosive run teams. They have the second highest explosive run rate in the NFL. That's something the Steelers really have to keep in check. But they're also facing a defense that, if you look at a lot of the metrics, the Steelers have switched how they've called defense over the past month or so. After they lost to the Packers, funny enough, but after they lost to the Packers, there was a kind of a realization that, like, hey, we came into this year thinking we're going to run a one high safety looks, single man coverage, cover 1, cover 3 spot drop, and that's going to work for us. And it wasn't. Guys were not trusting each other. The corners were living on islands that they didn't trust themselves. And so it just led to catastrophic failures in the structure of the defense. And so going into the Colts game, when they were playing the number 1 offense in the NFL at the time, they switched to 2 high safety looks a lot more. And they have held that for 3 straight games. And they've played well in 3 straight games defensively. They basically shut down the Colts. They took away Jonathan Taylor. They kind of made Daniel Jones turn back into the pumpkin for a short bit. And then up against the Chargers, they mostly contained the Chargers. Chargers eventually broke out because the Steelers' offense was just so bad. But then this Bengals team, since Joe Flacco had joined it, they average like 296.5 or something passing yards per game. That would lead the NFL if that was their season-long rate. They've been on fire, and they took it away. They took away Jamar Chase. They took away T. Higgins. That's why Jamar Chase was spitting on Jalen Ramsey, because he couldn't get open, and he was getting tired of them talking to him about it. And so the Steelers are playing a bit differently. They're stopping the run more consistently. They're getting after the quarterback. They're not having to blitz as much to get after the quarterback. And the secondary is passing guys off. You're not seeing as many guys just break open because of miscommunication or busts in coverage. And that's where the Bears are going to have to stay consistent, because the Packers kind of broke their game open because of 2 jump balls that the Steelers just misplayed, and then just fundamental breakdowns in the structure of their defense. But that hasn't happened the last few weeks. They're if you beat them with great throws, great catches, and things like that, where it's just, hey, mano a mano, that guy got me. But you're not going to get as many open looks as you've seen the Steelers give up in some earlier games this season. And I think that's going to be interesting to see for Caleb Williams. If the Steelers can limit DeAndre Swift in this run game, if they can keep him bottled up from having the explosives that can turn a short run play into a long run play, into an explosive run play. If they can do that and force this to be about Caleb Williams, and he holds on to the ball in the pocket, that plays right into the Steelers' hands, because they still have the pass rushers. I know TJ Watt doesn't have super sack numbers this year, but he still brings it. Nick Herbig is a third-year guy off the other side of the edge that's been coming in, even if Alex Highsmith isn't healthy for this game. Herbig is a monster there. And then Cam Hayward's still Cam Hayward. Derek Harmon's really come around. And Keanu Benton, third-year defensive tackle out of Wisconsin, he has really picked up his pass rush. I think he has 4.5 sacks on the season. He had like 4 pressures last week alone. This is a defense that's playing a lot better, a lot more aggressive, and a lot faster. And so the Bears, I think, despite the numbers, when you look at it, the Bears eighth in scoring, Steelers 16th in scoring on defense. This is a chance for the Steelers to have another step forward to reclaiming themselves as a good defense this year, because they were not for the first 7 weeks of the season.
I'll admit I'm a little biased when it comes to Keanu Benton, because he went to my high school and I met his parents.
Hey,
he's a really, really good dude and a really good community.
He's a really
guy.
good dude. Yeah.
I've got the connection there, but I am worried a little bit about this Steelers front from a Bears perspective. Like, especially Chicago's big weakness, there's no secret, is the left tackle. Theo Benedette he was an undrafted free agent last year who spent all the year on injured reserve. This is his first ever year starting. He wasn't really plan A, B, or C at left tackle, but they put him in, and he's been their best option as the season's gone on. He just hasn't been that good as a result. And I'm with you there. Herbig has been a big breakout for them in Pittsburgh. I know he's been kind of growing the last couple of seasons, but I think this year in particular, he's been a real threat. I think generally speaking, Caleb has done a better job of picking his battles a little bit when it comes to holding on to the ball too long. That he's been miraculous at escaping sacks in a way that just it's incredible. I mean, you can try and describe it to people, but there's going to be 2 or 3 plays where you're thinking in this game, the Steelers have him dead to rights and you don't. And it's hard to explain, but like that never stops.
I've seen it.
Yeah. But I think the issue in the past has been like, he makes that first guy miss and then he runs around and then still gets sacked, or he runs around and, misses a receiver because they're not on the same page. And what's been better this year is being more decisive once he makes that first guy miss. He'll take off and scramble and get the first down if they're in man coverage and he's got room to run, or he'll get outside the pocket and he'll throw it away and just say, screw it. I can't, there's nothing there. I'm just going to throw it away and live to fight another down. Or, he'll still, fire some balls downfield and make some plays there, but he's been avoiding the negative plays more so than like creating amazing positive plays. And that's still like a big step forward from where he was last year. So I think the Steelers are going to get some pressure on him. I think he's going to escape a lot of that pressure. They'll still sack him once or twice. Like, he's not unsackable. It's just you're going to leave the game thinking they should have had him 6 times and they only got him twice.
No, I hear that. And then listen, the Steelers, their pass rush hasn't had to deal with as many mobile quarterbacks with Joe Flacco, but they've seen it with Justin Herbert. They've seen it with Daniel Jones. They've seen it with Jordan Love and his ability to get loose. They've seen it with Drake May. And so Justin Fields, they've seen it this year, and they know it's coming because the week after they play the Bears, they're playing Josh Allen. They're playing Lamar Jackson. So they know it's coming there. But I think that's the thing here. And the Steelers, Mike Tomlin even acknowledged on his Tuesday press conference, he's like, we don't have a guy that kind of runs around the way that Caleb Williams does, as far as like scout team wise. And so they're trying to figure out who can be that guy in practice to kind of simulate that, because they have to be attentive of things. The Steelers have to maintain gap integrity, but also still be aggressive in closing down those gaps and getting after Caleb Williams. But that's the number one goal for this team. The philosophy is always the same. Stop the run first, pressure the quarterback, force mistakes, and defense in the secondary, be aggressive in going after to take the ball away. They want to create the splash plays. If Caleb Williams can go into this game and not turn the ball over, that's the key. If he avoids turnovers, the Steelers defense becomes a bit less of an issue, because they are huge on turnovers. The Bears are huge on turnovers. They have an average 2.2 a game. The Steelers are averaging a turnover a game. They're 11th best in the NFL with their turnover rate. 1.8. Excuse me, they're 4th best. I was reading the wrong stat line there, but they're 4th best in the NFL right now in turnovers. So I think this game really does come down to, on both sides, can the Bears get Rodgers or Rudolph to commit the big mistakes first? Because I've really seen the last couple of games, Steelers Chargers was neck and neck, and then all of a sudden Aaron Rodgers threw an interception and the Chargers were able to break the game open. The Steelers and Bengals were kind of neck and neck, and then Joe Flacco throws a pick 6, and then the Steelers just take over the game. The Colts, the Steelers get more turnovers. They're able to beat them. Same thing with their win over the Patriots. Again, 2 of the top teams in the AFC right now. If the Bears want to win this game, Caleb Williams has to protect the football. If he gets them a turnover or 2, the Steelers just feed off of it, and that's where things go downhill for their opponents.
I'll say generally he's taken good care of the football. His interceptions usually come not on like a bad decision, but like throws it slightly behind a receiver. It's an accuracy as opposed to like forcing the ball somewhere that he necessarily shouldn't have. So that'll definitely be a big key to watch. Chris, real quick before we wrap up here, Bears are 2.5-point favorites at home. I'm surprised by that. Any quick predictions on this game? I find myself leaning Steelers, but it depends on just how healthy this Bears injury report comes out.
Yeah, I mean, and same thing for the Steelers. The Steelers also have some injury questions right now when it comes to their guys. Like Darius Slay was healthy, but will he play a whole lot, because he wasn't good this year, and the guy that replaced him has honestly been playing better in James Pierre. He really took away Jamar Chase on some serious reps. But other guys that are important. One, we talk about Aaron Rodgers. 2, starting running back Jaylen Warren didn't finish the game on Sunday. Granted, Mike Tomlin said he could have if they wanted to, but he was a do not practice guy on Wednesday for the Steelers. Alex Highsmith, also a do not practice guy with a pec injury that forced him to miss the last game. So I look at that, and those could be factors too. But I just think that the Steelers, the things that they're able to do on offense, they'll be able to do, I think, against the Bears, in getting it to playmakers, letting them go make plays and feeding off it. And I think they can create turnovers, but I still think this is a close one. It goes down to the final drive. And I think the Steelers win 27-21, but it will be a very close affair with some big explosive plays in both directions that kind of open things up.
Pretty much every Bears game this season has been really close and comes down to who holds the ball last in the fourth quarter. And I'm kind of expecting something similar in this matchup on Sunday. But hey, we still got another day of Locked On Bears and Locked On Steelers podcasts coming your way this week to get you ready for game day. So make sure you tune in and keep making Locked On Steelers and Locked On Bears your first listen every single day. Coming back for our Friday podcast, and then we'll break it all down for you Monday after the game. So for Christopher Carter from Locked On Steelers, I'm Lauren Cox from Locked On Bears, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.